2 enforcers had done this before. Stop a citizen in a designated renewal zone. Assert control. Escalate fast. No accountability. No risk. Just another face they thought they could intimidate. She looked ordinary. Harmless. Easy. But when they drew their energy pistols, she moved like no civilian should. And she fought back. In seconds, everything changed. What they didn't know was that she wasn't just anyone. She was ex-Aegis Directive. Call sign. Reaper. They thought she'd break. They thought she'd bleed. They thought she'd be easy. They were dead wrong. And now the truth is coming for all of them. Ilara's weathered hands moved through the nutrient-rich substrate, feeling each synthetic granule between her fingers. The filtered afternoon sunlight, piped into her high-rise Hab unit's balcony garden, warmed her back as she worked. The familiar scent of soil and growing things brought a peace she'd fought hard to find. Her small balcony, tucked away on the 87th floor of a towering residential block in a sector marked for renewal, had become her sanctuary. She carefully placed another biogel tomato seedling into a hydroponic tray, remembering how her grandfather had taught her about real earth. "Not too deep now, kiddo," she could still hear the old man saying. "Plants are like people. They need just the right foundation to grow strong." The memory brought a slight smile to her face as she secured the delicate stem. Her garden wasn't much, just a few tiered hydroponic beds with vegetables and herbs, and some flowering plants that attracted the few remaining pollinator drones. But it was hers. Every plant represented another day of choosing peace over violence, of trading plasma rifles for grow lamps. Mr. Kenji, her elderly neighbor, called over the balcony divider. "Those tomatoes coming along, Ilara?" "Yes, sir," Ilara replied, straightening up and wiping her brow with the back of her hand. "Should have a good crop this cycle. I'll make sure to bring you some when they're ready." "You're too kind, child." Mr. Kenji paused, then added, "It does my heart good to see you out here every day. Reminds me of how things used to be, before the renewal zones. Everyone with their little victory gardens, sharing what they grew." Ilara nodded, understanding the deeper meaning in the old man's words. Their sector had changed over the years, but it still held on to its sense of community. People looked out for each other here, something Ilara had come to value more than she ever expected. She turned back to her work, moving on to check the cucumber vines climbing their light mesh trellises. Her hands, once trained to handle weapons with deadly precision, now carefully adjusted the tender stems, guiding them toward the support they needed. The irony wasn't lost on her. How these same hands that had taken lives on off-world colonies now nurtured life in this small patch of manufactured Earth. A gentle hum from the building's climate control system rustled the leaves. Ilara closed her eyes for a moment, letting the sound wash over her. It was nothing like the whip of dropship blades or the whistle of incoming fire, sounds that still sometimes invaded her dreams. Here, there were only the drone of air circulation, the distant roar of maglev trains, and children's laughter echoing from the communal play area somewhere far below. She reached for her water bottle, taking a long drink as she surveyed her work. The neat rows of plants, the carefully maintained nutrient lines, the methodical organization. Some habits from her military days remained useful in civilian life. Order and discipline, but now in service of growth rather than destruction. The calendar alert on her wristcom vibrated. Ilara glanced at it, noting the time, 14:30. The reminder to pick up Kala from the Learning Dome flashed on the screen. She began gathering her tools, placing them carefully in their designated spots in the old toolbox her sister had given her years ago, before the engineered blight took her. Ilara's movements were precise and efficient, muscle memory from years of Aegis discipline showing in every motion. She removed her gardening gloves, rinsing them in the reclamation sink before hanging them on their hook in the small storage locker. The routine was comforting, a daily ritual that helped ground her in the present. Inside the HAB unit, she washed her hands thoroughly, watching the gray water run clear as she scrubbed the substrate from beneath her fingernails. The unit was quiet, except for the gentle hum of the nutrient pump and the ticking of the old analog clock on the wall, a peace she'd learned to appreciate after years of chaos. Ilara caught her reflection in the window, overlooking the smog-hazed cityscape. The years had left their marks, silver threading through her dark hair, lines around her eyes that spoke of both laughter and pain. But her posture remained straight, her movements controlled, a lifetime of training impossible to fully shed. She grabbed her keycard from the charging port by the door. The old electric utility truck's fob hung alongside the HAB unit key and the small locker key. Each one represented a piece of her new life. Home, transportation, purpose. Simple things that had seemed impossible during her years of service. The door hissed open slightly as she stepped into the sterile hallway. Ilara made a mental note to check the pneumatic seal later. Her old utility truck was parked in its designated charging bay in the communal garage. Its faded gray paint was honest about its age, but it was reliable and, most importantly, completely off the city's network, like its owner. She'd chosen it specifically because it was ordinary, forgettable, a far cry from the armored personnel carriers of her past. She walked down the corridor to the elevator, the keys jingling softly in her hand. The sector was quiet at this hour. Most people still at their corporate-assigned jobs or in the domes. A few levels down, a maintenance drone buzzed past, and she nodded at its optical sensor in a gesture of habit. Ilara appreciated the simple normalcy of the moment. The truck's door opened with a familiar groan as Ilara climbed in, settling into the worn seat. She'd need to pick up Kala from the learning dome. Then maybe they'd stop at the synth protein vendor on the way home. Normal plans for a normal day. She swiped the keycard, and the electric engine hummed to life with its characteristic quiet purr. Ilara pulled up to the learning dome, just as students began streaming out of the gleaming chrome and glass building. She spotted Kala immediately, her niece's bright red data slate case standing out in the crowd of gray and blue uniforms. The girl's face lit up when she saw the familiar gray truck, and she jogged over, her cybernetically enhanced braids glinting with each step. "Hey, Auntie," Kala said, climbing into the passenger seat. She tossed her data slate in the back and plugged her seatbelt into the port. "You smell like substrate again." "That's the smell of honest work," Ilara replied with a small smile. "Unlike that neurophysics exam you were supposed to have today. How'd that go?" Kala groaned dramatically, slumping in her seat. "Can we talk about something else? Like dinner, maybe?" "That bad, huh?" Ilara pulled away from the curb, navigating through the after-school maglev bus traffic. "And here I was thinking about making your favorite tonight, my spicy lentil protein stir-fry." "Really?" Kala perked up instantly. "With the snap peas from your garden?" "Mm-hmm. But maybe I should reconsider, given that neurophysics exam." "No fair. I studied really hard, I swear. Instructor Valerius just makes everything so complicated." Kala pulled out her comlink, scrolling through messages. "Besides, I got an A+ on my historical warfare paper last week. That should count for something, right?" Ilara chuckled, making the turn onto Sector 7's main thoroughfare. "We'll see. How about we stop at the market and pick up some—" "Auntie?" Kala's voice suddenly changed, tension creeping in. "There's a warden cruiser behind us." Alara checked her side-view camera feed. A tactical Warden cruiser had appeared, following closely. Too closely. She maintained her speed, exactly at the limit, hands steady on the wheel. "It's fine. Just stay calm." The cruiser's energy lights flashed on. Alara signaled and pulled over smoothly, stopping in front of an old, abandoned manufacturing plant just 2 blocks from their residential tower. She powered down the engine and placed both hands on top of the steering wheel. Visible. 2 enforcers approached, one on each side of the truck. The one on the driver's side, older, with hard eyes and a swagger in his step, tapped on her window with his stun baton. Alara pressed the button to lower it. "ID and registration," he demanded without preamble, his tone sharp and hostile. "May I ask why I was stopped, Warden?" Alara kept her voice steady, neutral. "I said ID and registration." He leaned in closer, his badge reading Kael. The younger enforcer on the passenger's side, Reese, stood silently, watching. Alara reached slowly for her glove compartment. "I'm going to get my registration now, Warden." "You sector rats always have something to say, don't you?" Kael's hand rested on his energy pistol. "Can't just follow simple instructions." Kala's comlink appeared in her lap, its camera recording discreetly. Alara saw it, but didn't react. "My ID card is in my back pocket. I'm going to reach for it now." "Step out of the vehicle." Kael's command came suddenly, aggressive. "I don't understand. What's the reason for—" "I said get out of the vehicle!" Kael grabbed the door handle, yanking it open. "You want to do this the hard way?" Alara remained calm, though her heart raced. "Warden, I have the right to know why I'm being stopped." "Rights?" Kael sneered. "You're being detained for suspicious activity and possible contraband transport. Out! Now!" "Contraband?" Kala spoke up, her voice shaking but defiant. "We're 2 blocks from our home. You've been following us for like 30 seconds. "Kala, quiet," Alara warned softly. To Kael, she said, "Sir, this is harassment. I'd like to speak to your supervisor." Kael's face darkened. He reached in suddenly, grabbing Alara's arm. "Playing lawyer now. Get your ass out of this truck before I drag you out." "Take your hands off me," Alara said, her voice low but firm. "This is an illegal stop, and you know it." "That's it!" Kael yanked harder, his other hand going to his weapon. "Reese, get the girl!" The younger officer hesitated for a split second before moving toward Kala's door. Kala held her comlink higher now, openly filming. "Don't you touch her!" Alara warned, still maintaining her composure, even as Kael tried to pull her from the truck. "Put that comm down!" Kael shouted at Kala. "That's evidence tampering." "This is assault!" Kala shot back, her voice trembling but determined. "We have rights!" Kael's face contorted with rage. He released Alara's arm, only to draw his energy pistol in one fluid motion. "She's reaching!" he suddenly yelled, though Alara hadn't moved. "Gun, gun!" The sound of his plasma pistol charging shattered the afternoon quiet. When authority breaks its own rules, is following orders still the right thing to do? What would you have done in Enforcer Reese's position? We all want to believe we'd do the right thing, but faced with a superior's rage and the power of a uniform, the choice becomes terrifyingly real. Time slowed to a crawl as Kael's finger squeezed the trigger. Alara's body moved before her mind could process, years of training taking over like muscle memory. She twisted away from the energy bolt's path, her left hand grabbing Kael's wrist while her right struck his elbow. The gun clattered to the pavement. Kael's eyes widened in shock as Alara flowed from the truck like water, using his own momentum to flip him onto his back. The impact knocked the wind from his lungs with a heavy whoosh. His gun was in Alara's hands before he could even gasp for air. "Kala, down!" Alara commanded, her voice sharp and clear. Kala ducked just as another enforcer, one who had just arrived as silent backup, rounded the truck's hood. weapon drawn. Elara fired 2 precise shots from Kael's pistol, setting it to the lowest stun setting. The energy bolts struck each of the arriving officers' thighs, disabling but not seriously injuring them. They crumpled to the ground, spasming and groaning. Enforcer Reese stood frozen, his hand hovering over his holster, but not drawing. "Don't," Elara warned him, her voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. Reese's hand dropped to his side. The entire exchange had taken less than 5 seconds. "Kala, to me. Stay low." Elara maintained her aim on the downed officers, while Kala scrambled out of the passenger side. "Behind me, now!" Kala pressed against her aunt's back, trembling but still gripping her comlink. My God, she whispered. Elara began backing them away from the scene, moving with practiced efficiency. Her eyes never stopped scanning. Rooftops, windows, possible cover points. She looked nothing like the quiet gardener now. Every movement was precise, economical, lethal. What are you?" Reese stammered, staring at her with a mixture of fear and awe. Elara didn't answer. She guided Kala behind a parked cargo hauler, still covering their retreat. Citizens were beginning to peer out of windows and doorways, drawn by the commotion. "Inside!" Elara called out to them. "Everyone inside, now!" The streets emptied immediately. Kael pushed himself to his knees, synth blood trickling from where his head had hit the pavement. "Officer down!" he screamed into his comm, his voice raw with rage and humiliation. "Shots fired! Suspect is armed and dangerous!" Elara heard sirens in the distance. They had maybe 2 minutes before backup arrived. She spotted the service gate to Mr. Kenji's building slightly ajar, 3 towers down. The old man always left it unlatched during his afternoon air quality checks. "Kala, when I say run, you go straight through that service corridor and take the back freight elevator. Don't stop until you reach Archivist Theron's sanctuary. Understand?" Kala nodded, her whole body shaking, but her jaw set with determination. "You're not getting away with this," Kael snarled, trying to stand but wobbling unsteadily. "You're dead, you hear me? Dead." "Enforcer Reese," Elara called out, ignoring Kael completely. "You saw what really happened here. Remember that." Reese swallowed hard, looking between Elara and his raging superior officer. Something shifted in his eyes. Recognition, perhaps, of the choice now laid before him. "Run," Elara whispered to Kala. They sprinted in perfect sync, Elara keeping her body between Kala and the enforcers until they reached the gate. They slipped through just as the first backup unit screamed around the corner. Kael grabbed his comm again, face purple with fury. "All units! Armed suspect fleeing on foot! Sector 7, female, mid-50s, Aegis-level training. She ambushed us during a routine stop. Attempted murder of a warden. Terminate on sight. I repeat, terminate on sight." Kael twisted the truth in an instant to protect himself. Have you ever seen a lie spread faster than the truth? It makes you wonder what official stories we accept without question, especially when they come from a uniform and are shouted with authority. A lie spoken loud enough can become a weapon. Enforcer Reese watched his superior continue shouting into the comm, embellishing the story with each passing second. The truth of what he'd witnessed burned in his mind. An innocent woman defending herself and her niece from an unprovoked attack. But Kael was already crafting the official narrative, and Reese knew speaking up now would mean the end of his career. Or worse. "She had a weapon stashed," Kael was yelling now, pacing despite his dizziness. "Planned the whole thing. Tried to execute me, point blank." His hands shook as he touched the back of his head, fingers coming away bloody. The injury seemed to fuel his rage even further. More units arrived, enforcers spilling out with plasma rifles and tactical gear. Kale pointed them toward different search routes, his voice getting louder and more frenzied with each order. Find her. I want every HAB unit, every service tunnel, every goddamn hydroponic garden checked. That terrorist doesn't leave this sector alive. Reese stood rooted to the spot, still staring at the empty gateway where Alara and Kala had disappeared. He'd never seen anyone move like that, with such precise, controlled violence, like a force of nature contained in human form. The memory of her eyes in that moment haunted him. Clear, focused, utterly without fear. He looked down at the two stunned officers being loaded into med shuttles, their injuries painful but expertly placed to avoid any permanent damage. She could have killed them all easily. Instead, she'd shown restraint, even while defending herself. "Reese!" Kale's shout snapped him back to attention. "Stop standing there like an idiot! You're with me! We're going hunting!" As Kale stormed off to coordinate the search, Reese touched the body camera on his chest, wondering if it had captured the truth, and what that truth might cost him. Alara and Kala, huddled in the dim light of Archivist Theron's hidden sanctuary, located deep in the sub-levels of an old library. The ancient, lead-lined walls muffled the sound of sirens wailing through the sector streets far above. Kala sat on a worn couch, still shaking, while Alara stood at a small, periscopic monitor checking for movement in the tunnels. Archivist Theron descended the spiral staircase with 3 steaming cups of herbal tea. "The wardens are going block by block," he reported quietly. "But they won't come here without a corporate warrant. This library is sovereign ground, one of the last few. Sanctuary still means something." "Thank you, Theron," Alara said, accepting a cup, but not drinking. Her posture remained rigid, alert. Kala wrapped her hands around the warm mug, staring at her aunt. The quiet gardener who grew tomatoes and read old print books had transformed into someone else entirely, someone dangerous and skilled. The image of Alara disarming Warden Kale played over and over in her mind. "Who are you?" Kala finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Really?" Alara turned from the monitor, her shoulders heavy with the weight of secrets long buried. She met Kala's eyes, seeing fear mixed with confusion and awe. "I'm still your aunt," Alara said softly. "That hasn't changed." "But what I saw," Kala set down her tea. "That wasn't just self-defense, that was Aegis Directive, Special Forces or something." Archivist Theron settled into an old armchair, his presence steady and calming. "Perhaps it's time for truth, Alara. The girl has seen too much to keep hiding." Alara sighed deeply, then pulled up a wooden chair across from Kala. "I served 20 years in the Aegis Directive, but not in any unit you'd find in the public records." "Reaper," Kala said, making Alara's eyebrows rise slightly. "The call sign from your historical warfare paper I borrowed for my project." "I'm not stupid, Aunt Alara," Kala continued. "The way you moved, how you stunned those officers to wound but not kill, that's elite training." A ghost of a smile crossed Alara's face. "You always were too smart for your own good." Kala pulled out her data slate, her fingers flying across the screen. "And I've been doing some digging while we've been down here. There's not much about you in regular Aegis databases, but..." She turned the slate to show Alara. "I found some ghost files. Had to use a few backdoor algorithms to decrypt them." Alara's face darkened as she saw the heavily redacted document. One word stood out clearly. "Reaper." "Your call sign," Kala stated. Alara nodded slowly. "I led a special operations unit, counter-corporate espionage, hostage rescue, classified missions in places that officially didn't exist." She rubbed her hands together, as if trying to wash away old stains. "I thought I'd left that life behind. Why didn't you ever tell me?" To protect you. The things I did. The things I saw. Ilara's voice caught. When your mother died, I promised to give you a normal life. No violence. No looking over your shoulder. Kala scrolled through more documents on her slate. These mission reports. Most are blacked out. But the dates, the locations. Her eyes widened. You were there during the Cygnus X1 uprising and the Titan colony collapse. Kala, Ilara warned. Some things are better left buried. But you're a hero, Kala protested. You saved people. Ilara's face hardened. I was a weapon, pointed at whatever target my superiors chose. Sometimes the lines between right and wrong got very blurry. She leaned forward, taking Kala's hands. That's why I chose peace. Why I started growing things instead of destroying them. Ilara tried to bury her violent past to create a peaceful life. But can we ever truly escape who we once were? Is it better to confront our past head-on, or is there wisdom in letting it stay buried? Kala thinks her aunt is a hero, but Ilara sees herself as a weapon. Perhaps we are all a little of both. Archivist Theron cleared his throat. The universe works in mysterious ways, Ilara. Perhaps your skills were preserved for just such a moment as this. I won't go back to being that person, Ilara said firmly. Those enforcers tried to kill you, Kala reminded her. We have it on video. They're still out there, hunting you, lying about what happened. Ilara stood and paced the small room. I know, but violence only leads to more violence. There has to be another way. There is, Kala said, holding up her comlink. The truth. My video, these files, we can prove who you really are. Show everyone that Kael attacked you without cause. And paint an even bigger target on our backs. Ilara shook her head. The system protects its own. They'll bury the truth deeper than any of my classified missions. Kala stood and faced her aunt. Then we'll dig it up, together. You taught me to stand up to bullies, remember? To fight for what's right? Ilara stared at her niece, no longer the little girl she'd promised to shelter, but a young woman ready to face hard truths. Her heart swelled with pride, even as fear gripped it. Come here, Ilara whispered, pulling Kala into a tight embrace. They held each other, the weight of revelations and danger pressing in around them. Archivist Theron watched them with knowing eyes. Truth is a powerful weapon, sisters. Perhaps the most powerful of all. Ilara stroked Kala's hair, feeling the tremors still running through her niece's body. Everything she'd tried to prevent had come crashing down anyway. Her past was exposed, her peaceful life shattered, and Kala was now entangled in a dangerous web of corruption and violence. But as she held her niece, Ilara felt something else stirring beneath her fear. A familiar readiness, a clarity of purpose she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Kala was right. Sometimes fighting back meant standing in the light, not hiding in shadows. Warden Brett Kael sat at his desk in the precinct's tactical unit office, his leg bandaged. His fingers moved across the console with practiced efficiency as he edited the body camera footage from the traffic stop. Just a few adjustments, he muttered, carefully trimming frames and rearranging sequences. On his screen, the confrontation played out differently. Ilara appeared more aggressive, his own actions more measured and professional. Enforcer Kevin Reese stood behind him, watching silently as Kael manipulated the truth. The younger enforcer's stomach churned as he saw how easily digital evidence could be twisted. There, Kael said, leaning back with satisfaction. Now it shows what really happened. Reese frowned. Sir, that's exactly what happened, rookie. Kael cut him off sharply. She was combative from the start, refused lawful commands, then reached for a weapon. I didn't see a weapon, Reese said quietly. Kale swiveled in his chair, fixing Reese with a hard stare. Listen carefully. You're new, so I'll explain how this works. Sometimes the camera doesn't catch everything. Sometimes we have to help the footage tell the right story. The story that protects our brothers and sisters in the unit. You understand? Reese swallowed hard and nodded, though his conscience screamed otherwise. He watched as Kale exported the edited video and sent it to the precinct's public relations division. Within hours, the footage was playing on every news feed and public holoscreen throughout the city-state. The headlines scrolled across screens. Former Aegis operative attacks wardens. Manhunt underway for armed and dangerous fugitive. Sources claim suspect has ties to anti-corp extremist groups. In the break room, Reese watched the coverage with growing unease. The edited footage showed Ilara lunging at Kale unprovoked, the camera conveniently shaking at crucial moments. There was no sign of Kala's presence or her recording. Nothing about Kyle's aggressive approach or unnecessary escalation. Captain Morris entered, his face grim. Ethel Corp's internal security division is taking an interest. They're sending a team to assist in the manhunt. Kale, who had followed the captain in, smiled tightly. Good. This woman's clearly a threat to public safety. Military training, anti-corporate ideology, classic domestic terrorist profile. Reese noticed something in Kale's tone. Not just satisfaction, but eagerness. As if this was exactly what he'd wanted. The young officer retreated to his desk, pulling up the original incident report. Small details nagged at him. The timestamp gaps in the body cam footage, the missing dash cam video from his own patrol car, the fact that Ilara had shot to stun rather than kill. None of it matched the narrative being pushed. His computer pinged with a new email, an intelligence bulletin showing Ilara's military service record. Most of it was heavily redacted, but what remained painted a picture of an exemplary soldier with multiple commendations, not the profile of someone who would attack officers without cause. Across the precinct, comlinks rang constantly as tips poured in. Tactical teams geared up for raids. K-9 drones patrolled the skyways of Ilara's sector. The machinery of law enforcement was spinning up to full power, all focused on one target. At his desk, Kyle made call after call, coordinating with corporate security and media contacts. His leg wound seemed forgotten in his zealous pursuit. Reese overheard fragments of conversations that made little sense, references to property developers, clearance operations, and cleaning up the sector. A system designed to protect was being used to displace people for profit. It's a stark reminder to always ask, who benefits? When a narrative is pushed this hard, you have to look past the story being told and find the one being hidden. Have you ever felt like a pawn in someone else's game? As evening fell, unmarked vehicles began arriving at the precinct. Men in tactical gear, but with no identifying insignia, corporate mercenaries, moved through the building with quiet purpose. Reese watched them disappear into closed-door meetings with Kyle and senior officers. In the library's sanctuary, Archivist Theron descended the stairs with urgent news. His usually calm face was etched with worry. "They're mobilizing everything," he reported. "Not just local wardens. Corporate agents, tactical teams, surveillance drones. Word from my contacts is they're treating this like a major counter-terrorism operation." Ilara stood by the periscope, her posture tense. "They're not just coming for me. They're using this as an excuse for something bigger." "My sources say the same," Theron agreed. "This goes beyond a traffic stop gone wrong. They're coming for you, Ilara. Big time. And they're bringing enough firepower to take down a small army." Kala clutched her comlink, the unedited video of the stop safely encrypted inside. They're trying to bury the truth under a mountain of lies. No, Ilara corrected grimly. They're trying to bury me. Through the monitor, they could see more unmarked vehicles rolling slowly through the darkening skyways. The hunt was intensifying. The machine was in motion. And Ilara, the gardener, ant, and former Aegis Reaper, had become the target of forces far beyond a corrupt local warden with a grudge. The pre-dawn darkness cloaked Ilara's residential block in shadows. She sat alert in her HAB unit's living room, fully dressed, watching the street-level camera feed on a small monitor. Kala dozed fitfully on the couch nearby, their emergency bags packed and ready. Ilara's trained ears caught it first. The subtle whisper of anti-grav vehicles rolling in with lights off, the soft crunch of boots on the walkway below, the metallic clicks of plasma rifles being armed. Kala, she whispered, gently shaking her niece's shoulder. Time to move. The teenager was instantly awake, grabbing her backpack with practiced efficiency. They'd drilled this dozens of times since the traffic stop. Through her own comm link hacked into the building's security feed, Ilara counted at least 20 figures surrounding the tower's entrance. Tactical teams in full gear, taking up breach positions. More units blocked both ends of the skyway. Maintenance shaft, just like we practiced, Ilara murmured. Stay low, stay quiet. Enforcer Reese sat in his patrol car at the perimeter, watching the massive operation unfold. The scale of the force seemed extreme for apprehending one woman. Armored vehicles, tactical teams, even a sniper drone circling overhead. All units in position, crackled his radio. Execute on my mark. Inside, Ilara led Kala through the darkness toward their escape route. She'd prepared for this, disabling the HAB unit's silent alarm, creating a false loop on the door sensor, and loosening a panel in the rear wall that led to the building's old, unmonitored service shafts. The front door of her unit exploded inward with a thunderous crash. Flashbangs detonated, flooding the main room with blinding light and deafening sound. Armed officers poured in, sweeping with laser-sighted weapons. Clear! Voices shouted. Moving to the bedroom! But Ilara and Kala were already slipping through the narrow service shaft, using the dense network of pipes and conduits as cover. Ilara had mapped every shadow, every concealed path in the building's infrastructure. Reese watched the raid team systematically tear through Ilara's home. They kicked in doors, smashed personal belongings, and upended her hydroponic garden, destroying her plants. The violence of it shocked him. This wasn't law enforcement. It was destruction. Target not here, someone shouted over the radio. Check the balcony! More crashes, more splintering of her handcrafted furniture, more shouts of frustration. Through his windshield, Reese noticed movement in a dark service alley 2 blocks down, a shadow passing between buildings. He squinted but said nothing into his radio. His hand hesitated over the transmit button. They brought overwhelming force to crush one woman, turning a neighborhood into a war zone. When does a manhunt become an act of terror? What's the line between security and oppression? For Reese, that line was no longer blurry. It had been crossed, and he was on the wrong side. Ilara guided Kala through the darkness with hand signals she'd taught her. Stop. Wait. Move now. The teenager followed perfectly, her footsteps silent on the metal grating. They reached the sublevel just as searchlights began sweeping the alleys above. Ilara pulled Kala behind a large power converter seconds before a tactical team rushed past. Spread out, a commander ordered. They have to be close. Reese stepped out of his car, watching the organized chaos unfold. Neighbors emerged onto their balconies, filming with comlinks. Children cried behind hastily closed blast-proof windows. An elderly woman in a nightgown stood trembling as armed men swept her small garden with their rifles. "This isn't right," he muttered. "What was that, rookie?" Kael appeared beside him, a tactical vest strapped over his uniform. "Nothing, sir." Reese looked away. Ilara and Kala reached their first waypoint, an abandoned geothermal vent station 3 sectors away. Inside, Ilara retrieved a hidden bag containing new clothes, untraceable currency chips, and burner comlinks. They changed quickly, while police sirens wailed in the distance. "Where are we going?" Kala whispered, pulling on a dark hoodie. "To see an old friend," Ilara replied. "Someone who knows how to stay off the grid." Across town, a man known only as Cypher sat at his bank of computer monitors, watching the raid unfold through hacked city surveillance feeds. His fingers flew across keyboards, erasing digital traces, planting false trails, and keeping his old colleague's escape route clear. The sun was rising as Ilara and Kala approached Cypher's safe house. A nondescript sub-level workshop surrounded by a chaotic mess of discarded tech that disguised signal jamming equipment. "Remember," Ilara told Kala, "Cypher's paranoid but brilliant. Don't touch anything electronic without asking first." They slipped through his back entrance, avoiding the hidden cameras Ilara knew were watching. 3 precise knocks on the door. Cypher opened it cautiously, his weathered face breaking into a grim smile. "Took you long enough, Reaper?" "Had to take the scenic route," Ilara replied. "Thanks for the backup." "Always." He ushered them inside, checking the corridor before closing and triple-locking the door. "Welcome to my humble fortress of solitude." Kala stared at the controlled chaos of his command center. Walls of monitors showing surveillance feeds, news channels, warden frequencies, and scrolling lines of code. "Your place is—" She searched for the right word. "Secure," Cypher finished. "Hardened against electronic surveillance, thermal imaging, and any other toys they might throw at us." He typed rapidly, bringing up footage of the raid. "They hit your place hard, very hard. This isn't just about a traffic stop anymore." Ilara watched the destruction of her home on the screens. "No," she agreed. "They're scared. We need to find out why." At the precinct, Reese sat at his desk, filling out the raid report with shaking hands. The images wouldn't leave his mind. Terrified families, violated homes, military-grade weapons deployed in a residential neighborhood, all to hunt down a woman whose only crime was defending herself. He looked at his badge, then at the warden's credo displayed on the wall. "Order, security, progress." For the first time in his career, he wondered which side of that credo he was really on. Cypher's fingers danced across multiple keyboards, his eyes darting between screens filled with encrypted data. The soft blue glow of the monitors lit up his weathered face as he worked to crack Kael's digital trail. "These files are warden-grade encrypted," he muttered, taking a sip of cold synth coffee. "But they made one mistake. They used the corporation's standard protocols." Ilara stood behind him, watching strings of code scroll past. "Can you break it?" "Already have." Cypher pulled up a series of documents. Property records, eviction notices, and corporate email chains. "Look at this. KL's tactical unit has been conducting targeted enforcement actions on specific properties for the past 18 months. Kala leaned in, her quick eyes scanning the data. "All in designated renewal zones? Like ours?" "Bingo!" Cypher highlighted several addresses. Every raid resulted in arrests, property seizures, or voluntary evictions. And guess who bought up those properties for pennies on the dollar within weeks? Ilara's jaw tightened. Ethel Corp Development. Shell corporations, technically, Cypher corrected, pulling up more records. All leading back to EthelCorp. They're turning billion credit profits by forcing people out and gentrifying the sectors for the elite. Calla pulled out her laptop, fingers flying across the keys. I'm creating folders for each case. We need to organize this so people can understand the pattern. Smart girl, Cypher nodded approvingly. Document everything. Screenshots, timestamps, chain of custody. Make it court-proof. Elara studied a map showing the raid locations. They're systematically clearing out entire sectors, using warden power to do the dirty work. And that's not all. Cypher opened another encrypted file. Kale's unit has been receiving large, untraceable crypto deposits, payment for services rendered. Calla's eyes widened as she compiled the evidence. Look at these body cam videos. They're all corrupted at convenient moments, just like what happened to us. Across town, Enforcer Reese sat in his car, reviewing his own collected evidence. His phone contained secretly recorded conversations, photographs of doctored reports, and notes from other officers who'd witnessed misconduct but stayed quiet. His hands shook slightly as he added another video. Kyle bragging about cleaning up the neighborhood while accepting a crypto stick from a corporate liaison. Back at Cypher's workshop, Calla organized the digital evidence into clear, compelling folders. I'm linking everything to a secure, decentralized server. Even if they shut us down, the files will stay safe. Good thinking, Cypher said. But they'll try to discredit it all as fake news or hacked data. That's why we need live witnesses, Elara added. People speaking their truth in public. Calla pulled up the city's public access network. There's a city council meeting next week. It's being broadcast live on the public feed and streamed everywhere. Cypher checked the details. Perfect timing. The mayor is pushing a major renewal initiative. All the key players will be there. Including Kyle, Elara noted. He always provides security at these meetings. Calla created a presentation combining data with human stories. I'm adding testimonials from families who were forced out, photos of their homes before and after, the money trail showing who profited. We'll need backup plans, Cypher warned, setting up redundant systems. They'll try to shut down the stream, cut the power, anything to stop the truth from getting out. Already on it. Calla held up multiple data chips. I've got copies ready to distribute to every independent news outlet in the city, plus backup live stream links through private, anonymized servers. Elara watched her niece work, pride mixing with concern. You understand this is dangerous, right? These people have already shown what they're willing to do. Calla met her aunt's eyes. I understand, but staying quiet is more dangerous. They're destroying our community, Aunt Elara. Someone has to stand up. Cypher's security system beeped, showing Reese's patrol car driving past for the third time that hour. We've got company, Cypher announced, switching to external cameras. Wait, Calla said, squinting at the screen. I recognize him. He was at the traffic stop. The quiet one who didn't shoot. Elara studied the enforcer's face. He wasn't patrolling. He was searching. He's conflicted, she observed. Watching, thinking. Could be useful, Cypher mused. A warden's testimony would add serious weight. Calla pulled up Reese's personnel file. Clean record, no excessive force complaints, new to the force. Not corrupted yet, Elara said softly. Maybe still remembers why he became a warden. They spent hours refining their plan. Cypher secured the technical details, backup power, multiple broadcast channels, untraceable internet connections. Calla polished the presentation, making complex data clear and compelling. Elara worked on escape routes and contingency plans. The council meeting is at 19 Antoine next Thursday, Calla confirmed, marking it on their secure calendar. Public comment section starts after the mayor's presentation. Perfect, Cypher said. They'll be trapped in their own spotlight. Elara checked her watch. 1 week to prepare. To get everything and everyone in position. Kala saved their final files, her face set with determination. 1 week to get ready to tell the truth. Enforcer Kevin Reese parked his patrol car in an empty industrial lot, far from the city's ever-watchful optic sensors. His hands gripped the steering wheel as he watched Kala approach through the shadows. She moved cautiously, her comlink ready to record. "I came alone," Reese said quietly as she reached his window. "No wires, no backup." Kala kept her distance. "Why should I trust you?" "Because I can't sleep anymore," Reese's voice cracked. "Every night I see your aunt's face when Kale pulled that trigger for no reason at all." "You stood there and did nothing," Kala said, anger edging her words. "I know." Reese's shoulders slumped. "That's why I'm here now. I've been gathering evidence, recordings, photos, documentation of every illegal raid and cover-up. I want to testify." From the darkness, Elara emerged silently. Reese jumped, not having noticed her presence. "Easy," Elara said, her voice steady. "If you're really here to help, prove it." Reese pulled out his comlink, hands shaking slightly. "I recorded KL bragging about the payoffs, about targeting specific housing blocks for the developers. He thinks I'm just a rookie who wants to learn the ropes." He played a video. KL's voice came through clearly. "These people don't deserve these properties anyway. We're doing the city a favor, cleaning things up, and making good money doing it." Kala studied the video carefully. "This is real. High quality, too." "I've got more," Reese said. "Much more. Body cam footage they thought they'd deleted. Bank records. Names of other officers involved." Elara's expression remained neutral. "Why now? Why risk your career?" "Because this isn't what I signed up for," Reese met her gaze. "I wanted to help people, protect communities, not terrorize them for profit." Kala looked at her aunt. "We need his testimony. A warden speaking out will make people listen." "It's also dangerous," Elara warned. "For all of us." "I know the risks," Reese insisted. "But someone has to stand up. These aren't just files and cases. They're families, homes, lives being destroyed." Inside Cypher's safe house, they reviewed Reese's evidence. Cypher ran authenticity checks while Kala integrated the new material into their presentation. "Everything checks out," Cypher confirmed. "His recordings are genuine, metadata intact." Elara watched Reese carefully. "Walk me through exactly what happened that day." "The traffic stop." Reese took a deep breath. "Kael picked your car specifically, said we needed to send a message to the sector. When you refused to exit without cause, he got angry. He never intended for it to end peacefully." Kala's fingers paused over her keyboard. "You knew it was wrong. We could see it on your face." "I froze," Reese admitted. "By the time I realized what was happening, shots were fired. Then I watched a woman protect her niece with military precision, while my training partner tried to murder her." Elara's expression softened slightly. "Sometimes standing up late is better than never standing up at all." They spent hours incorporating Reese's testimony into their plan. Kala created a powerful sequence, combining his videos with their other evidence. Cypher established secure communication channels for coordination during the council meeting. "I'll speak during public comment," Reese said. "Present my badge, my evidence, everything. They can't shut me down without looking guilty." "We'll have multiple cameras streaming," Kala added. "If they cut one feed, 3 more will be live." Elara studied the council chamber blueprints. "You'll need protection. Kael will have his tactical team there." "I've got other officers who'll help," Reese revealed. "Good cops who are tired of the corruption. They'll be in plain clothes watching our backs." Kala finished the final presentation cut. This is it. All the evidence, all the testimony, all the truth. Ready to go public. Thursday at 19 o'clock, Cypher confirmed. During the mayor's big renewal announcement, maximum exposure. Across town, in a dimly lit bar, one of Kael's informants slipped onto a stool. "Boss, we got a problem. The rookie flipped." Kael's face darkened as he listened to the details. His fingers tightened around his glass until his knuckles went white. "The council meeting," he growled. "They're planning to expose everything?" "Yes, sir. The girl's coordinating it all. Some kind of tech wizard. They've got videos, documents, witnesses ready to testify." Kael drained his whiskey. "Reese, I can handle. Internal affairs will destroy him. But that girl..." His eyes turned cold. "She's the key. The one pushing it all forward. What do you want us to do?" Kael stood, dropping a credit chip on the bar. "Find her, before Thursday. Make sure she never makes it to that meeting." He walked out into the rainy night, rage building with each step. Everything he'd built, all the power and profit, threatened by a teenage girl with a data slate. That had to end. Protests swelled outside City Hall as citizens rallied against the renewal initiative. Maya stood near the steps, coordinating live stream feeds with other young activists, her fingers flying across her data slate. "Testing feed 3, she said into her comm link. "Everyone in position." Reese watched from across the plaza, dressed in civilian clothes. He scanned the crowd, noting several of Kael's tactical unit members mixing in, wearing plain black hoodies and baseball caps. Something felt wrong. The first sonic disperser exploded near the back of the crowd. Screams erupted as disorienting sound waves filled the air. Kala's heart raced as she tried to maintain visual contact with her team. "Stay calm," protest leaders shouted through megaphones. "Don't run! Link arms!" More explosions followed. Through the chaos, Reese spotted Kael's men moving with purpose, not random like the panicking crowd. They were creating a diversion. "Kala!" he shouted, pushing through the mass of bodies. "Kala, get out of there!" She heard him too late. Two men in hoodies grabbed her arms, swift and practiced. Her data slate clattered to the ground as they dragged her toward a waiting van. "Help!" Kala screamed, kicking and thrashing. "Someone help!" Reese sprinted forward, badge out. "Wardens, let her go!" 3 enforcers he recognized from Kael's unit stepped in his path. One grabbed his arm while another twisted the badge from his hand. "Stand down, rookie," the biggest one growled. "This isn't your business." "She's a minor." Reese struggled against their grip. "This is kidnapping?" "It's crowd control," the enforcer sneered. "And you're interfering with official warden business." They took the child to control the warrior. It's an age-old tactic of tyrants, the last resort of a coward losing control. What does it say about a person's character, their entire system, when they must target the vulnerable to get what they want? Kala's screams were muffled as they forced her into the van's dark interior. Reese watched helplessly as the vehicle pulled away, its windows tinted black. The sonic waves began to clear. Protesters regrouped, helping the injured. News drones captured the aftermath but had conveniently been disabled or blocked during Kala's abduction. Reese's comlink buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Smart cops know when to shut up. Across town, Ilara's burner phone lit up with a video message. Her hands trembled as she pressed play. Kala sat in a concrete room, zip-tied to a metal chair. Her face was tear-streaked, but defiant. Kael's voice came from off-camera. "Your niece is brave. I'll give her that." The camera panned to show Kala's laptop and data slate laid out on a table. Smart too, but not smart enough. Ilara's jaw clenched as Kale stepped into frame, resting his hand on Kala's shoulder. Kala flinched, but held her glare. "Here's how this works," Kale continued. "You come to the old Riverside hydro plant, alone. No weapons, no backup, no clever plans. You've got 1 hour." The camera zoomed in on Kala's face. "If you call for help, she dies. If you bring anyone, she dies. If you're not here in 60 minutes... "Don't do it, Aunt Ilara," Kala shouted. "He'll kill us both!" The video cut off. A text followed with coordinates. Ilara's military training kicked in, analyzing options, calculating risks. But this wasn't a battlefield. This was Kala, her only family, her reason for living peacefully all these years. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Kyle. "Tick-tock, Reaper. Your move." In the hydro plant, Kala tested her restraints while Kale paced, checking his watch. 2 of his men stood guard by the door, hands resting on their weapons. "She'll come," Kale said, more to himself than anyone else. "The great Aegis Directive Commander, brought down by a teenage girl." "You're wrong about her," Kala said quietly. "She's not what you think." Kyle laughed. "I know exactly what she is. A threat, a loose end. And after tonight? A memory." "No." Kala's voice was steady despite her fear. "She's hope. She's justice. And you're about to find out why they called her Reaper." "Shut up," Kale backhanded her across the face. Kala's head snapped to the side, but she didn't cry out. Outside, storm clouds gathered over the city. Thunder rolled as Ilara stood in her borrowed room, staring at her old footlocker. She hadn't opened it in 10 years. Her comlink buzzed one final time. "Time's running out. Come alone, or she dies." Ilara closed her eyes, remembering Kala as a baby, holding her sister's hand in the med bay, remembering her promise to protect this child, no matter what. "I'm sorry, little one," she whispered. "I tried to leave the violence behind, but they brought it to our door." She unlocked the footlocker. Ilara knelt before the open footlocker, her hands trembling as they brushed over the familiar equipment inside. The smell of gun oil and synth leather brought back memories she'd tried so hard to bury. Her tactical vest, still perfectly maintained despite a decade of disuse, seemed to accuse her with its presence. "I led raids just like that one," she whispered to the empty room. "Kicked down doors in the dead of night. Never questioned who was on the other side." The weight of her past pressed down on her shoulders. How many families had she torn apart in the name of mission objectives? How many children had she terrified, thinking she was serving a greater good? Now Kala was suffering because Ilara had tried to hide from who she was, what she could do. She should have been more prepared, should have taught Kala better survival skills, should have... A gentle knock interrupted her spiral of guilt. "Ilara?" Archivist Theron's deep voice carried through the door. "May I come in?" "It's open," she replied, not moving from her position on the floor. The archivist entered quietly, his usual commanding presence softened by concern. He took in the scene. The open footlocker, Ilara's haunted expression, the military gear laid out with mechanical precision. "I failed her," Ilara said, her voice rough. "Everything I did to keep her safe, to give her a normal life, I just made her vulnerable." Theron settled into a chair, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. "You protected her the only way you knew how, with love. Love isn't enough against men like Kael." Ilara picked up a tactical glove, running her thumb over the reinforced knuckles. "I should have stayed sharp, stayed ready." "Perhaps," Theron agreed, surprising her, "but not just for Kala, for all of them." Ilara looked up, questioning. "How many other families in this sector live in fear of that next routine stop?" He gestured toward the window, where sirens wailed in the distance. How many mothers lie awake at night, wondering if their children will come home? The rot goes deep, Ilara. Deeper than one corrupt warden. I can't fix the whole system, Ilara protested. I'm just trying to save my niece. You have a gift, Theron said firmly. Skills that could protect more than just Kala. The question is, will you keep hiding from who you are? Or will you use those skills to serve justice? Ilara stood slowly, her military bearing returning like a second skin. She lifted her tactical vest from the footlocker, its familiar weight settling across her shoulders like destiny. I swore an oath once, she said, checking the ceramic plates, to defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Amen, the Reverend nodded. Some oaths don't expire. Ilara moved with increasing purpose, muscle memory taking over as she geared up. Black tactical pants, combat boots, laced tight and double-knotted, knee and elbow pads, a utility belt with specialized pouches. Each piece of equipment carried memories. Midnight insertions into hostile territory, precision strikes against impossible odds, protecting the innocent from those who would harm them. She had been good at it. The best. They called me Reaper, she told Theron as she checked her stun pistol. Not because I killed, because I decided who deserved judgment. Theron watched her transformation with solemn understanding. And what judgment does Warden Kale deserve? Ilara loaded a stun cartridge into her sidearm with a decisive click. That depends on him. I'm giving him one chance to surrender Kala unharmed. And if he refuses? She secured her backup weapon in an ankle holster. Then he learns why they feared the name Reaper. Theron stood, placing a heavy hand on her shoulder. Do what must be done, sister. But remember, this isn't just about vengeance. It's about justice. Real justice. Not just for Kala, but for every victim of their corruption. Ilara nodded, securing her radio earpiece. I understand. This ends tonight. Not just Kael, but the whole corrupt system he represents. She faced the mirror, barely recognizing herself. Gone was the peaceful gardener, the quiet ant. In her place stood a warrior, honed by years of combat and tempered by righteous purpose. I'll need evidence, she said, checking her tactical watch. Everything they've done, everyone they've hurt. Can you help get the word out? Leave it to me, Theron promised. When the truth comes to light, the whole city will see them for what they are. Ilara pulled on her gloves, flexing her fingers until the synth leather creaked. Each weapon found its place. Each tool secured exactly where muscle memory would find it. She moved like liquid shadow, every motion efficient and deadly. Kala first, she said, her voice carrying the quiet authority that had once commanded elite soldiers. Then we burn their whole corrupt house down. The storm outside grew stronger, lightning flashing across her determined face. In the distance, thunder rolled like artillery fire. Reaper was going to war one last time, not for a corporation or a flag, but for justice long denied. Sarah moved like a ghost through the abandoned industrial district, her boots making no sound on the wet pavement. Rain had turned the night into a maze of shadows and reflections, perfect conditions for someone trained in stealth operations. Her radio crackled softly. Security cameras on the east side are looped, Reese whispered. You've got about 20 minutes before the next system refresh. Copy that, she breathed, barely moving her lips. The young officer had proven his worth, feeding her intel from inside the corrupt system. His help might cost him his badge, but he'd chosen his side. Ilara pressed herself against a brick wall, letting her dark clothing blend with the shadows. 2 guards passed by, their boots splashing through puddles. They were sloppy, talking loudly, weapons held carelessly. Not professionals, just Kael's thugs with badges. She waited until they rounded the corner, then moved. The lock on the side door gave way to her electronic picks in seconds. Inside, the hydro plant smelled of rust and ozone. Metal catwalks crisscrossed overhead, and old machinery cast strange shadows in the dim emergency lighting. 3 hostiles on the ground floor, Reese updated. 2 more upstairs. Kael's keeping Kala in the old foreman's office. Elara unholstered her tranquilizer gun. No killing. Not unless absolutely necessary. The first guard never saw her coming. She caught him from behind, one hand over his mouth while the dart found his neck. She lowered his unconscious body silently to the floor. The second guard was facing away, scrolling on his comlink. Amateur. The dart took him in the shoulder, and he slumped against a support beam without a sound. Camera B7 is clear, Reese confirmed. But hurry, something's got them nervous. Elara climbed the metal stairs, her movements fluid and precise. Years of training took over, checking corners, maintaining cover, reading shadows for signs of movement. The third guard posed no challenge, dropping without raising the alarm. A voice echoed from above. Johnson, you see anything down there? Elara pressed herself flat against the wall, controlling her breathing. Footsteps approached the railing. She waited. Muscles coiled like springs. The guard leaned over, squinting into the darkness. Johnson! Elara's hand shot up, grabbing his vest. Before he could shout, she pulled him over the railing. They fell together, but she twisted mid-air, ensuring he took the impact. His breath whooshed out, and a quick strike to the temple put him down. Last guard's getting suspicious, Reese warned. He's heading your way. Elara melted into the shadows beneath the stairs. The final guard descended cautiously, weapon drawn. He was better trained than the others, checking corners, moving tactically. But Elara had trained with the best. As he passed her position, she struck. Her arm locked around his throat in a perfect blood choke. He tried to fight back, but she rode his struggles until unconsciousness took him. Guards neutralized, she whispered into her radio. Status on Kael? Still in the office with Kala. Reese hesitated. He's talking to someone on the phone. Sounds nervous. Elara climbed back to the second level, moving faster now. The foreman's office stood at the far end of the catwalk, its windows grimy but lit from within. She could make out 2 figures, one small and seated, the other pacing. Through the glass, she finally saw Kala. Her niece sat handcuffed to a chair, a bruise darkening her cheek. But her eyes were clear and defiant, tracking Kael's movements with cold calculation. Elara felt a surge of pride. Kala wasn't broken. Kael stalked back and forth, gesturing with his service weapon as he spoke into his phone. No, you listen! This got too hot. I want extraction now. I don't care about the operation. She's going to... He spun toward the window, and Elara ducked below the sill. Her heart pounded, not with fear, but with controlled rage. The bruise on Kala's face. The way Kael waved his gun around. Every instinct screamed to burst in and end him. But Aegis training ran deeper than instinct. She took slow breaths, calming her pulse. Emotion was the enemy of precision. She needed to be cold, calculated, like the Reaper they'd named her after. Elara, Reese's voice was urgent in her ear. Multiple vehicles approaching. Looks like Kael's corporate backup is coming. She checked her watch. The security system refresh was imminent. Her window was closing. Through the glass, she could hear Kael's rising panic. Just get here. She's not like the others. She's Aegis or something. Professional, if she finds us. Too late, Elara whispered, though he couldn't hear her. She positioned herself beside the office door, ready to breach. Kala was alive. Kael was unstable. The endgame was about to begin. She keyed her radio one last time. "Reese, if this goes bad, make sure the truth gets out. All of it." "It won't go bad," he replied firmly. "You've got this, Commander." Elara allowed herself a grim smile. Time to show Warden Kyle why they called her Reaper. Elara had the power and the justification to end Kyle's life right there, but she hesitated. Is justice about retribution? About an eye for an eye? Or is it something more? What choice would you have made in that moment, knowing the world was watching? The silence stretched like a wire about to snap. Sarah's muscles coiled. Ready. Harley's finger tightened on the trigger. The first plasma bolt sizzled through the air. Elara was already moving, rolling behind a stack of corroded metal crates as more bolts vaporized concrete where she'd stood seconds before. The acrid smell of ozone filled the air. "You can't hide forever," Kale taunted, advancing slowly. "I've got the gun, remember?" Elara's eyes darted around the space, taking in angles and cover points. A heavy hydro spanner lay discarded near her boot. She grabbed it, calculating the trajectory. When Kyle stepped past a support beam, she hurled the spanner hard to her left. It crashed into a panel of gauges with a shower of sparks. Kyle spun toward the noise, exactly as she'd planned. Elara burst from cover, closing the distance in 3 swift strides. Her hand clamped around his gun wrist, twisting sharply. The weapon clattered to the floor as Kyle howled in pain. He recovered quickly, throwing a wild haymaker at her head. Elara slipped the punch and countered with a precise strike to his solar plexus. But Kyle fought dirty. As she stepped in, his knee drove up toward her groin. Elara barely blocked in time. "That all you got?" he snarled, pulling something from his belt. A black stun baton that crackled with electricity. The weapon hummed through the air inches from Elara's face. She felt the static raise the hair on her neck as she weaved backward. Kyle pressed forward, swinging the baton in vicious arcs. When Elara tried to close the distance, he gouged at her eyes with his free hand. She caught his hand and applied crushing pressure to the nerve cluster in his wrist. Kale grunted but managed to slam the stun baton into her ribs. Electricity jolted through her body. Elara's muscles spasmed, but she didn't let go. Instead, she used the pain to fuel her next move. They crashed into a narrow hallway, trading brutal strikes. Elara read the architecture instantly. When Kyle lunged with the baton, she planted 1 foot on the wall, using it to launch herself into a devastating roundhouse kick. Her boot connected with his jaw with a satisfying crack. Kyle staggered, spitting blood. The fight spilled back into the main hydro plant bay. Elara's trained eye spotted the weakness in Kyle's stance. He was favoring his left leg slightly. She dropped low, sweeping his vulnerable knee with clinical precision. Cartilage popped. Kale roared in agony as the joint gave way. But even injured, he was dangerous. Near a control console, he caught Elara with a lucky strike that sent her crashing into a bank of conduit pipes. Pain exploded across her back. He pressed his advantage, wrapping massive hands around her throat. "Not so tough now, are you?" he sneered, squeezing. Elara's vision started to dim. Her fingers scrabbled against the wall behind her, finding a loose power cable. In one fluid motion, she ripped it free and looped it around Kyle's neck. She pulled tight, using the cable as a garrote. Kyle's grip loosened as he clawed at the cord, cutting off his air. Elara maintained steady pressure, watching his face turn red, then purple. She could end him right here. After everything he'd done, that was justice, right? Revenge? Just before consciousness left him, she released the pressure. Kyle collapsed in a heap, wheezing desperately. Elara grabbed his collar and dragged his semi-conscious body back to the central room where Kala waited. Her niece had already freed herself from the restraints and was working on something with a comlink. "You okay?" Alara asked, checking Kalla's bruised face. "Better than him," Kalla replied, with grim satisfaction. She held up a small device she'd affixed to Alara's collar, showing an active data stream. "The body cam I built. We're living 3, 2, 1. Kyle stirred, blinking groggily. A smirk crossed his battered face. "Doesn't matter what you do to me. System protects its own. You got nothing." "Look again," Alara said, pointing to the small red light blinking on her collar. "You're live to every major news feed and social media platform in the city. So let's talk about what you've really been doing in this sector." The blood drained from Kale's face as he finally noticed the recording light. His eyes darted around like a trapped animal's. Alara leaned in close, her voice steel and ice. "Say it all. Every family you evicted, every bribe you took, every raid you faked. The world is watching." 2 weeks after Kael's live-streamed confession, the basement of archivist Theron's library buzzed with energy. Folding chairs filled every available space, packed with neighbors eager to learn and share. Cypher stood at a makeshift podium, his normally reserved demeanor animated as he taught basic cybersecurity. "Your comlink is both a weapon and a shield," he explained, pointing to the projection behind him. "Today, we're learning how to protect ourselves digitally while documenting truth." Kalla sat in the front row, adding her own insights about social media encryption and secure file sharing. She'd become the sector's go-to tech expert, turning her experience into a force for change. The bruises on her face had faded, but her determination had only grown stronger. Alara watched from the back, content to observe. She'd turned down 3 corporate security job offers and a formal reinstatement request from a newly formed Citizens Oversight Committee. Her garden needed tending, and her community needed her more. "The system only works when we make it work for us," Cypher continued, showing slides of successful civilian accountability programs. "Knowledge is power, but only if we share it." Archivist Theron moved through the crowd, offering coffee and encouragement. He'd transformed the library into a community center, hosting everything from legal aid clinics to self-defense classes. The walls, once bare, now displayed photos of successful protests and community victories. Kevin Reese slipped in through the side door, still looking slightly uncomfortable in civilian clothes. After testifying against Kyle and Ethel Corp, he'd been dishonorably discharged. But the neighborhood had embraced him. Now he taught workshops on citizen rights during warden encounters, turning his insider knowledge into a shield for the community. "Hey," he said quietly, taking a seat next to Alara. "Still feel strange being on this side?" "Good strange or bad strange?" Alara asked, studying his face. "Good, really good." Reese watched as Kalla helped an elderly woman secure her comlink's privacy settings. "I'm finally doing what I signed up for, protecting people." The workshop transitioned into small group discussions, the room filled with the low buzz of conversation as neighbors shared stories and strategies. Alara noticed how people who'd once hurried past each other now leaned in close, planning and supporting one another. Cypher joined them in the back, wiping sweat from his forehead. "We've got 4 more sectors asking for similar programs," he said. "Word's spreading." "Let it spread," Alara replied. "The more people know, the harder it is to hide the truth." Through the basement windows, they could see people gathering in the library courtyard for the afternoon rally. Hand-painted signs leaned against benches. "Our sectors, our stories. Truth can't be buried." Kalla bounded over, her data slate tucked under one arm. "The livestream setup is ready," she announced. "We're going to broadcast the whole rally, show everyone what real community power looks like." Elara squeezed her niece's shoulder, proud of how Kala had transformed her trauma into purpose. The teenager had started a youth media collective, teaching other kids how to document and share their reality safely and effectively. "Archivist," Elara called as Theron passed by. "How many people are we expecting today?" "More than last time," he smiled. "And not just our sector. People are coming from all over the city. They want to learn how we did it." "How we're doing it," Elara corrected gently. "This isn't finished." Outside, the crowd was growing. Families set up folding chairs and shared homemade food. The atmosphere was determined but peaceful, exactly what Elara had fought for. Reese helped set up the sound system, showing others how to position cameras to capture warden behavior at public events. His presence was a powerful symbol of change, proof that conscience could overcome conditioning. "You know," Cypher said quietly to Elara, "this is a different kind of victory than what we used to fight for. Slower, deeper." Elara nodded, watching her community transform fear into strength. Every workshop, every rally, every shared meal was another brick in the foundation they were building. Not just resistance, but renaissance. Kala's voice came through the speakers, testing the sound system. "Check 1, 2, can everyone hear me?" The crowd responded with cheers and raised fists. The filtered afternoon sun warmed Elara's face as she stepped outside. Her garden would need attention soon. The tomatoes were almost ready for harvest. But for now, she watched her neighborhood write its own story, one truth at a time. Archivist Theron took the microphone, his deep voice carrying across the courtyard. "We gather today, not just to remember what happened, but to celebrate what's happening. Look around you. This is what justice looks like. This is what community looks like." The crowd murmured in agreement. Elara saw faces she'd known for years now, shining with new purpose. The same streets that had once felt like a trap now hummed with possibility.